Thank you all really for coming. We're so excited to have you at the show, and we have a great morning for you guys. To overview Toy Fair real quick for you, when you go out on the show floor, we have over 1,000 exhibiting companies. They're showcasing their playthings to thousands of buyers, media, entertainment executives, licensors, and more. And these 4 days are really an opportunity for them to buy and sell product. They pitch and exchange ideas, meet with strategic partners, and really reconnect with their community of the toy industry. So to kick us off today, you're gonna hear from a panel to help you see just the start of the wide scope of career tracks. And to moderate, I'm gonna introduce Kathleen Campisano. She's Global Chief Marketing Officer at Beacon Media Group, a Toy Association and current Toy Foundation board member, longtime contributor of the toy industry, having roles at Barnes & Noble, Mega Brands, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, and more. Kathleen?
For coming. I'm actually going to be asking the questions from here. The reason why I'm doing that is because we're going to save the last 6 to 8 minutes for you guys to have Q&A. All right? So as I introduce the panelists, you'll get to hear a little bit about their background. Keep your attention right there. Ready? First, we're going to start out, and I'd like to welcome PJ Lewis, the Vice President of Marketing and Global Head of Action Figures and Plush. PJ is an experienced marketing and entertainment executive with over 20 years of experience leading global businesses. In his current role, PJ oversees the global action figure and plush portfolios at Mattel, which include products from Masters of the Universe, Jurassic World, and the WWE. During his career, PJ has created the vision for some of the world's most visible consumer product franchises, such as Monster High. He's developed partnerships with Disney Pixar, DC Entertainment, just to name a few. He has experience leading across multiple disciplines, including business development, brand storytelling, content distribution, digital media, and product design. Thank you, PJ. Next up is Nunzio Appio, National Sales Lead, Toys and Games Partnerships from Future Today. Nunzio is an experienced media sales executive with over 20 years in kids media and marketing space. In his current role, Nunzio oversees advertising and content partnerships for Future Today, 150 plus kids CTV channel app specializing in the toys and games category. Throughout his career, Nunzio has developed and managed innovative media partnerships, TV, digital, event, and retail media properties. He has been at the forefront of Future Today's toys and games business and is built into a flagship CT channel called Happy Kids. Thank you. Welcome, Nunzio. Next up is Adam Biehl. Adam Biehl is the SVP and General Manager at Hasbro. Adam Biehl has spent over 20 years in product development, brand strategy, and consumer marketing focused in the business of play. He is currently Senior Vice President at Hasbro. Adam most recently has led Hasbro's board game division for the past 2 years as GM of Hasbro Gaming, including many of the world's most recognizable games, Monopoly, Clue, Game of Life, Taboo, Scrabble, and Trivial Pursuit. He also spent 15 years working in action brand business, including partnering with Marvel, Lucasfilm, Sony, Paramount, and other global studios to bring entertainment-inspired products to life of fans of all ages. Okay. Next up, thank you, Adam. Yeah, next up is Sharon Price-John, President and CEO of Build-A-Bear Workshop. Sharon's a renowned business leader and change agent. Sharon is the president and CEO of Build-A-Bear Workshop. Under her leadership, she has led an incredible turnaround, delivering the most profitable year in the company's history in 2021, and then did it again in 2022. Sharon has earned several distinguished awards and honors. Sharon has been named one of Fortune's top CEO and most powerful women in business, In March 2023, she was number 6 on the Forbes 20 customer-centric companies led by women, and so many more that we could literally fill this entire hour with Sharon. However, her most recent accomplishment has been the author of a published book called Stories and Heart: Unlock the Power of Personal Stories to Create a Life You Love. The book has been ranked as Amazon's #1 bestseller in business mentoring and the coaching category. Welcome, Sharon. Yeah, we didn't invite any slackers to this thing, I'll tell you that. Next up is Aaron Muderick. Aaron, founder and head guy of Crazy Aaron. I love the head guy. Aaron is an inventor and creative force behind Thinking Putty, a groundbreaking stress reliever and fidget sold in over 25 countries. As executive chairman of Crazy Aaron's, Aaron has gone beyond innovation to also champion social responsibility, manufacturing for over 25 years. But Aaron is more than a business leader. He also is a thought leader in the industry. In 2019, he was elected to the board of the Toy Association, where he currently serves as executive chair. He's also an advocate for product safety, testifying before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee to push for stricter toy regulations online. Welcome, Aaron. And last but not least, one of my personal favorites, Marnie Lawrence, Senior Director of Merchandising and Divisional Merchandising Manager at Barnes & Noble. Marnie is an influential toy industry veteran who began her career as department manager at the world-famous FAO Schwartz on Fifth Avenue. After seeing firsthand how toys spark imagination, encourage creativity, and foster a love of learning, Marnie knew that she discovered her path. Marnie is currently the Senior Director in DMM of Toys, Games, Collectibles, and Paper Source at Barnes & Noble. Marnie remains passionate about cultivating and curating the perfect product assortment for all ages. Guys, please, big round of applause for our panelists. So this is going to be thrilling, and that's the most I'll speak throughout this entire time. But those are very rich and incredible bios, and anybody who's accomplished all that you all have had a beginning, right? And these are students, and they're just beginning themselves. So can you talk a little bit? I'd love to do 2 or 3 minutes each on your beginning and how you got to where you are. Yeah? Let's start with Adam.
Oh, wow. Hi, everyone.
Oh, wow.
So I followed the typical path. Generally, I've been in business my whole career. I didn't come up through the design or engineering ranks. Got a 4-year degree. Did not like any of the jobs that were available out in the world for someone like me with a marketing major. Everyone wanted me to go in sales. And while I feel like that's all I do all day long, actually, I wanted to learn how to market things. So I ended up getting my MBA right out of undergrad, which I don't recommend anybody do, because I think it's really great to have tons of work experience before you go back to school. And when I graduated, I wanted to be in the kids business. I just didn't know how to get in. And this is back in the time when you could answer, I'm going to date myself, want ads in the paper. So my first job, I was looking at the want ads in the newspaper in print. And it said juvenile products. I'm like, that's kids. Finally, it's a kid's stuff. And I'm sitting in the lobby of this company for my interview, and I'm looking around, and it's all pictures of moms pushing strollers, babies on potties, breast pumps, etc. I'm like, oh, wow, I know nothing about this category. But I ended up meeting this guy who was amazing, who eventually became my boss. Super inspiring. And you know, what I learned from that when I look back is, and I was just telling this story to someone outside, is if you understand your consumer, you understand your consumer journey, their wants, their needs, their likes, you can make any product. You can market any product. You can be a champion for that product line and speak to that consumer. And so that's really what got me in the industry. I was in juvenile products for many years. That's where I learned how to make stuff. It's a very complicated industry because of all the safety regulation standards, and then worked my way to the toy industry through a company called VTech that wanted to make baby toys, where I happened to cross paths with Sharon and John for a little bit, and then just went on to work at Leapfrog on the West Coast, and then came back to the East Coast to work for Hasbro. And the one thing I'd say about my journey is that that first job was the only time that I needed to search for a job. The rest of it came through networking, relationship building, doing a good job, I think, and building a reputation. Then it's easy to pick up the phone and start talking to people. Meet them at a conference like this and say, hey, I thought about this person. They're really good. That's a big deal once you get started, and even before.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, networking, right? Once you have your job, the job is to continue to find new work and new opportunities. So the constant state of networking, really important. Let's pivot over to Aaron.
Oh, hello. Good morning, everybody. So my journey was a little different. I grew up, was high school, discovered computers, became obsessed with computers, wanted to know everything about them. This is pre-internet, so I'm dating myself for you guys a little bit. And I was 100% sure that this was going to be my life. I went to college. I got a degree in computer science at the University of Rochester, and came back to Philadelphia after some successful summers in Silicon Valley, working at Apple and Java and really seeing how the future was being created, working on the cutting edge of what the internet or computer graphics could do. And in Philadelphia, I found myself getting fidgety and bored at my computer job because Philadelphia was connecting banks to insurance companies and helping pharmaceutical companies build logistics systems. It wasn't for me. The toy that kept me most occupied was a little egg of putty at my desk. And that combined with, I'll say that, opportunity favors the prepared, right? My education in computer science prepared me to think about problems I had no idea how to solve and break them down into steps. So when that moment of inspiration came that I want to learn how to make this stuff because I am just so obsessed with it, I was able to do that, and I was able to use the new power of the internet, the sum total of human knowledge sort of coming in through a glowing screen to be able to figure it out because I had no connections in the silicone rubber industry. I had never done manufacturing. We're living in this virtual world. I had never really gotten my hands dirty. But I figured it out, and I was able to start selling to friends and relatives. Adam mentioned understanding your consumer. For the first 15 years of the 25 years I've been doing this, the consumer was me. It was people just like me, so I intrinsically understood them, and maybe what you do would be like that. Then, at some point I hit a wall, and I had to learn how to understand people not like me, right? How to understand what's going through the mind of a 9-year-old girl or an 11-year-old boy, because I wasn't that anymore. Yeah. So that was how I came to Crazy Aaron's. It grew and grew, and here we are today.
Fascinating. Thank you. Marnie, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Good morning. Thank you, Kathleen. Without going too far back into my origin story, I'll just say that I grew up in a very small town in Texas and really wanted to get out and thought that my path would be to move to New York and become a buyer, and that was my dream. And through a series of fortunate events, I ended up at FAO Schwarz. I assumed my path would be in fashion. But I ended up at FAO and thought, okay, I'll try this for a little while, and just absolutely fell in love with the industry and the people and the pace and the creativity. I started out as a department manager at FAO back in its heyday and quickly moved up to the buying office and became an assistant buyer, an associate buyer, which is a pretty typical career path if that's where you want to go. But as soon as I got there and was introduced to this amazing group of people and this really fantastic product and just the gratification you get from seeing a product go from conception to prototype to on the store, and then you get to see the sales, that is amazing, and I was hooked. And so from then on, I was in the toy industry. I was at FAO for about 10 years, learning everything I could about every category in the industry, and then was recruited by Barnes & Noble to get into the internet business and start toys online, and then we brought those toys into stores. So really hadn't planned on toys, definitely wanted to be in New York, and ended up in this amazing industry, and I'm so grateful that I did.
Yeah, interesting. That location kind of found your path, right? That desire for the city. Very interesting. Okay, Nunzio, you're up.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me here today. My journey, I'll try to keep it short, but it kind of rambles a little bit. So, out of college, I thought I wanted to be in the TV business, and I had an interview at a cable network. I'm sure you guys don't even know what a cable network is anymore, but USA Network. And the job was literally like just watching commercials, logging things manually, making sure things were running correctly, or the wrong ads weren't, the right ads were running, or the wrong ads were running. So I realized after that interview that that's not what I want to do. So my resume somehow ended up in the ad sales group on the desk of this gentleman named Jim Watson, who was also from New Jersey, as I am. And he ended up being sort of a mentor for me. He didn't have a role at USA Network at that time, but introduced me to the world of TV buying and advertising agencies. So he set me up with a couple interviews. I got a job at J. Walter Thompson as an advertising media buyer for linear television on at that time, I think it was the Pizza account, Little Caesars Pizza, and then Toyota. So there I spent some time learning the logistics of buying media and what they call media math. I then moved on to J. Walter Thompson, was another agency for more of a senior buyer role, working on the Unilever account. So my days were spent buying TV on daytime television, soap operas, if you guys know what those are, late night TV. Lots of fun, lots of parties with the entertainment networks. And then from there, there was an opportunity to work at CBS or a sports marketing company. And I thought to myself, what's more interesting? So I went to work for a sports marketing company and spent some time there as sort of a sales planner. It's the guy who does the proposals and tracks all the campaigns. And then from there, that led to a sales role, my first sales role, which then eventually the company downsized, and I moved on to a role working at CNBC, selling international news sales. And then I'll get to it, Kathleen, but from there, I lost my job, 9/11. So the international team was decimated. And then I ended up, through keeping in touch with my mentor, Jim Watson, I ended up at 4Kids Entertainment, which is the company that was behind Yu-Gi-Oh! At that time, the Ninja Turtles. They did stuff for Nintendo. So that was my exposure to the kids business. I was the head of sales planning and pricing, and also did some sales, got involved in some of the licensing deals. That was the point I really was like, wow, this is a really cool business where it's still advertising, but there's a direct tie-in to products and entertainment. And from there, I went on to work at the Cartoon Network, and then here I am, fast forward to today, selling advertising across connected TV apps for kids.
So interesting, because that was a lot of career choices that diverted you for quite a while, over a short period of time, but still a lot of different and unique jobs. But finally, you locked in and found your path, yeah? And the importance of a mentor, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And I think you would all agree that it's critical and it's relevant, right? I'm going to go right to Sharon. Sharon?
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I love seeing all the fresh faces and people wanting to be in the toy industry. It's a great industry. But I think what's interesting about some of the stories that you're hearing today is that it's a circuitous route. You are often told to create this very specific path with all these goals and timelines, and you should do that, but you have to be open to things that are in front of you. You have to be willing to take chances. Everything's not going to work out the way you plan, and the key with that is that when it doesn't work out the way you plan, that's okay, because there's probably something better around the corner. So really quickly, I started out on the advertising side, the creative part of advertising and marketing in my undergrad, and I too wanted to go to New York. And there's a real beauty in not knowing any better. So, like, I had no idea how difficult it was going to be to get a job in a top 10 ad agency and set a goal to get that job in 1 week, which is nuts. But sometimes you do better when you don't know better because you actually don't know the odds. And ended up getting a job at DDB Needham on my 16th interview in 1 week. So that started the whole process, and had a great career there working on Snickers and confections and things like that. Never thought I would be on the real business side. One of my clients is like, you should get an MBA. I'm like, what's that? And ended up, against all odds, in my opinion, getting enough gumption to apply to business school at Columbia, right up the block, a few blocks away here, and got my MBA from Columbia. And from there, they, just like with you, Adam, I'm like, well, I don't want to be an investment banker, and I don't want to be a management consultant. So I picked all of these consumer-facing companies that literally my only criteria was they sound fun. And, and one of them was Mattel. And I ended up working on the Barbie business, and then living in Paris on the Disney business, and then coming back, and then going to VTech and meeting Adam, and then ended up at Hasbro, the head of U.S. toy division, and then the head of global preschool, where I met Adam again. And then I was asked to run the Stride Right children's group in fashion and footwear. Took a little bit of a sidestep, where after years and years of the toy industry, I learned about retail, vertical retail, and all of that crazy path somehow magically made me a fairly viable candidate to be the CEO of Build-A-Bear Workshop. And that was an amazing moment, because you then had this opportunity, just like Steve Jobs says, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking back. I looked at the dots and I'm like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so now 10 years later, here we are. But be open and try things.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah. Okay, PJ, bring us home.
Okay, I'm going to connect through a few things, some commonalities that we've already heard from the other panelists. First and foremost, my toy career started out about 30 blocks away in investment banking. Because, like most toy careers, maybe, you don't know exactly where you're going to go on your first step. And I learned an important lesson that, I think I heard maybe Nunzio say. I found out what I didn't want to do very early in my career. And it allowed me to sort of take a few risks. One was move to California. And I worked at 20th Century Fox back when it was 20th Century. I believe then it was 21st thereafter. That's a dating moment right there. And what I started to enjoy was sort of thinking about more creative industries. I went and got my MBA, and much like Sharon, attended an information session for Mattel. And I thought it was really fun. It was really interesting. The folks came in. They were talking about the creative behind what's a toy. They were talking about the business model behind what's a toy. And they were talking about the opportunity to do a lot of different things. And I got an internship, an MBA internship at Mattel, and now I've been there 17 years thereafter. That was by no means the plan. I've done a lot of really interesting things. I was a subject matter expert, leveraging some of the content distribution and entertainment business development skills that I had back when we had a small Barbie entertainment business, which has now been far eclipsed by any of that 17 years later, with a record-breaking movie this summer. I then worked on our licensed entertainment business, which was mostly action figures, Disney, Pixar, Cars, and some more. I worked on Monster High in some of the early years of the Monster High business. I ran our games division. I worked in corporate, spent a lot of time doing a variety of things in our corp dev team, and I've been running our action figure group now for about 5 years. One of the other things I heard that I do want to echo, and I know the next question is about mentorship, but I have a mentor that says careers are long. And it's the simplest comment, but it takes it takes a while for that to sort of settle and crystallize. And where you are today is not where you're going to be tomorrow and not where you're going to be thereafter. And you hear the stories on this panel, and I'm sure none of us would imagine that we would have been here at one point talking about our careers, because there's a lot of rejection, there's a lot of positivity, there's a lot of acceleration, and there's a lot of opportunity. And it's a really interesting thing to contemplate that careers are long. And just take that with you when you meet that rejection, when you're not sure what the next step is. because it's given me a lot of strength through the years. So I just want to share that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. So you got that first offer, right? Adam, talk to me about some of the compromises that you had to make. Was the offer the money you wanted? Was it the title you wanted? Was everything perfect in that offer? And how did you discern which compromises you were willing to make and where you had to be steadfast?
Yeah, I think for me, I think the first compromise I had to make was I showed up to an interview for an industry, what I thought was the toy industry or kids products industry, and I was faced with something I knew nothing about, and that scared the heck out of me. I didn't feel like I had any reference point. When I was in college, that was like the start of the tech boom. That's when all the web-based browsers launched, and I knew a lot about that stuff. And a lot of people were talking about e-tail, and I knew I could be helpful there. And I knew I wanted to be involved with product, but this baby stuff, I mean, what the heck? Where's that going to take me? And so that was probably the first compromise, is that. I mean, and after that, I mean, small things, like real things that you'll have to deal with, like, do I want to have an hour commute for my first job? You know, and like, what does that mean? Like, that's 2 hours every day in the car. We didn't have podcasts. We didn't have Spotify. And so that was just another thing. These are part of the money was, I didn't even recall money being an issue. It was a paycheck. And I was like, that's awesome. There you go. I'm going to get paid to do something really neat. But I think a lot of it is the small stuff. It's like, what are the small sacrifices you're going to choose to make? And at that age, at that time, it was really easy to make those decisions, I thought.
Yeah.
But it's about career pathing. You cannot predict your path at all. I would have never predicted that when I made my first product, which was a baby potty seat, where you got rewards for successfully using the potty, and you got a T-shirt or a onesie that says, I'm a super duper pooper, that would turn into the career that I've lived today.
That's great. Thank you.
I am, by the way.
Sharon, I'm going to ask you the same question, compromises. So we'll have the male and the female side of the story, if there is a gender reality to it.
I'm going to answer this in more existential manner. I don't make any compromises.
There you go.
I make choices.
Yeah. Very nice.
And sometimes I might have to make the second choice, but that's a choice, because when you think about your life in terms of compromises, you're thinking about it in terms of, that it's somehow out of your control. And even though it is in the whole big thing, you can't pretend you're in control, but it's the story you tell about it later that's empowering to you. So you weave the story around whatever choice you had to make in a way that it creates a promising future for you. So I don't look back and think about compromises. And if you have a long enough horizon on it, sort of like what PJ is saying, you don't even know if what you think is bad yet.
Right.
It might be the best thing that's ever happened to you, so just go ahead and pretend that it is.
Excellent.
There's a lot of data out there, like 60% of the stuff we remember didn't even happen. So just go ahead and make up something great. But no, but that New York, that whole thing to New York, when they literally set me down on the last day, the last interview, and Dee Dee Needham said, we'll give you this job. And it's still the longest title I've ever had. Assistant account executive trainee of something, something, something. I'm like, geez. Okay, and then she's like, this is, I remember this so well. She's like, and I'm like, so how much? And she's like, well, we'll send you a letter. And I'm like, no, I'm right here, right now. Is there anything else that you need to know that you don't know? And I'm like, because I'm moving to New York with you, basically with you or without you, but I was very respectful. And she goes, okay, fine, who is this girl? And she says, well, $24,000. And I'm like, 25. Still to this day, I have no idea what I was going to do with that extra $1,000. But I don't know. I just thought I'm going. This is on my terms.
This is what you're worth. Yeah.
And she said fine. And she literally said fine and gave me a letter. So I was like, Well, that was the beginning.
That's beautiful, though.
yeah.
I think there's a lot of messages. I love the choice comment, right? Even a compromise is a choice. And I love the you know what you're worth, for sure, right? Beautiful. I am gonna pivot. I'm gonna ask everybody now, just quick. PJ teed it up for me. We are gonna talk about mentors. What role did mentors play in your life? Where did you meet them? And how long have they stuck with you? Is it a quick minute or is it a lifelong thing? So Marnie, you wanna start us?
Sure. I'll just say, when you look at a mentor, it doesn't have to be just one person that mentors you. You're going to learn something from every single person you work for and work with throughout your career. And really think about that. When I think about all the amazing people I worked with, I took something from every single one of them, and I filed that away. It made me a better business person. It made me a smarter individual. It made me a more empathetic boss. So just think about that when you're working with someone, and you don't necessarily have to seek out a mentor. They're all around you. Just be open, listen, have a good attitude. You want to learn new things, and that's how you're going to find your people. And if you're lucky enough to find that one person who you really connect with and stick with for the rest of your career, even better. Even better. But I don't want anyone to think, oh my God, I have to find that one mentor. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, and you're going to find them, and you just need to absorb everything that you're seeing and learning in any kind of meeting, in any kind of interaction.
Nice. Aaron, yeah.
Sure. I was very lucky I had a strong father. May he rest in peace. And he had started many businesses, not always successful. As a child, I noted that. Maybe took some lessons of what didn't work. Saw him lead community organizations, saw how he brought people together, learned from that. I wanted to key off what Marnie said, that you should always be listening. And I find that those who maybe have the most strong emotional reaction against, the people you like the least at work, in school, take a moment and listen a little more. You don't have to become their best friend, but you will learn something from them, even if it's really what you don't want to become. But listen, because each of us are coming with years and years of experience, and we're bringing it to you. You have the opportunity to swirl those thoughts around and then choose your action based on what you've learned from those mentors.
Excellent. Yeah. Sharon?
Nobody's good at everything. Nobody's good at everything. Not me, not you, not anybody on this panel. So I kind of take a page out of Marnie's, but I call it my board of directors. I have a collection of mentors. I don't like to lose people in my life and career. They kind of hang out forever, like some of these guys know. And I would encourage you to get your board of directors and think about it just like you would as a company. Make sure you get people who have different skill sets, different knowledge, different areas of expertise that you counsel on different areas of your life. And then, I think that you're probably going to get the best out of them and probably the best advice by doing that.
Excellent. Adam?
I think I've had a couple of mentors in my career, but the one that stands out, the one that I still will call my mentor today, he's not even in the industry anymore. He's retired. That's great because you get tons of time. But I think in terms of like connecting with people, you'll meet these people in your career or in your life who are willing to give you time. They're willing to ask you questions. They're willing to listen and give you counsel. Identify those people. Hold on to them because not everyone's like that. And that's how I found some of the strongest mentors in my career. Now, at the same time, I've searched out mentors in certain specific areas, even within my own company. Sometimes they're peer mentors. In some cases, they're junior to me because they're a subject matter expert. I want to learn more about this. So under the guise of I'm mentoring you, I set up meetings because I want to learn about them and what they're working on. And so there's a two-way relationship there because I can promise, because I think everyone here has probably done some level of mentoring, you gain as much from that as they will gain from you. And that's really the perfect situation.
Beautiful. Nunz?
Yeah, I mean, I have to echo what Adam was saying. You really have to either seek that person out or make that bond or that relationship with that mentor. I mentioned my mentor, who actually helped me through a lot of different life phases. My first job, and then, gosh, almost 10 years later after I lost my job, he was always there for me, in between, kind of guiding me. He was the one who said to me, okay, don't go to CBS, you'll be one of 10 people. Go to Raycom Sports and you'll be one of one. And you know what? In 2 years, you'll be selling there, and at CBS, you're going to still be sitting there in the back room and not have any exposure to clients. So that was guidance that he gave me. And then when I lost my job, I had just gotten married. Jim was there for me. He helped me get my next job, which ended up getting me into the kids business. So I think it's really important, if you find somebody really good, really keep that relationship, because I mean, I can tell you what I went through. Jim was there for me, and I don't even know how I could even pay him back.
Yeah, beautiful. PJ, yeah.
A lot of wisdom here. I don't have so much to add, other than I think for a long time I was looking for one specific mentor, and then I realized I had a few. And I want to chip away at the formality sometimes. Some folks say, like, well, I'm too afraid to ask for someone to mentor me. And sometimes it doesn't need to come in that capacity. It could just come in the form of a question or a curiosity of how someone did something. And then next thing you know, the informality takes on a little bit more formality. So I have a few folks that sort of support me in my journey. Love the board of directors. Metaphor, it's strong, it exists, but it doesn't necessarily need to be so formal. It can be something that's informal, and I encourage you, ask questions. You never know where it's going to go. Be curious, and be curious about people's careers.
Great. Thank you, guys. So I'm going to pivot completely. I was talking to a lot of the students while we were waiting in the breakfast room, and there's a natural curiosity, as you can imagine, about recruiting, right? And how is recruiting for top talent, entry-level talent, changed in the organizations that you work with today? And what's the wisdom we're going to pass on to these guys? What's the best way to penetrate the opportunity? Is it submit to LinkedIn? Is it check my portfolio on Adobe? Is it how do they get in? What's that new way to get into an organization? Anybody, just opening it up.
All right, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So our company, we have about 115 people, 2/3 of whom are in manufacturing, maybe 1/3 all the other business roles. And when we're hiring, the instruction I give is that we are hiring smart, and we are hiring intrinsically motivated. You want to do this, and you have the horsepower to figure it out. And I really encourage staff to break through the idea of specific degree, right? I don't have a degree in what I'm doing, or even experience. Bring people in, save 15 or 20% of the interviews that you're gonna do for people that are that long shot. So we try to create that. And then the advice that I give to students is start subscribing for all these free trade magazines. Whatever industry you're in, whatever, it may be toys specifically, it may be licensing, it may be entertainment. Go online. You can get subscriptions to these magazines, paper versions. I know you guys are all digital, but trust me, to your house for free, and you start looking through them. Names, awards, people who were on panels. This is how you can network. Hey, I saw you were in this article, and it really interested me, and I had a question for you. Call their office. Don't be afraid if you get no response to email. We all know there are filters. Reach out. You are young. You are very safe to people who are very established in their careers. We're sort of all in competition with each other in a lot of ways, but you are someone we want to help, fresh young faces. So don't be afraid to reach out. I think you'll get a positive response.
Great advice, great advice. Anybody else, please?
I'd say hustle, resiliency, and if you do have a focus on an industry, as Aaron said, become a student of that industry, so that you're not coming in cold the first time that you have an interview. Don't be afraid to start with an internship as your first job out of school. I mean, if you're in the engineering, industrial design, or design or graphic design areas, we probably hire over 80% of our co-ops and design interns. That's a great way to do it, get into a company like ours. It's a great way for you to test out a company, test out an industry. It's a great way for a company like Hasbro to test you out and to create what we call an onboarding and a path to full-time employment. We call these talent roadmaps and talent pipelines. It's a great way to see you do your stuff.
I'll add to the hustle, the smart. We really look for intellectual curiosity, energy, passion. It's a fun business, and it ebbs and flows. And if you're not passionate about it, it's going to be hard. It's an enormous amount of energy to do well, particularly if you want to rise in the organization. And when you have that passion and that intellectual curiosity, even though you're exuding the same amount of energy, you're exhilarated at the end of it instead of exhausted. And that's the kind, when you find that piece of your career, that's when you know you're in the right place. Like, even if you had a terrible day, you wake up the next morning going, yes, here we go. I got to do this today. But we're looking for that, because the truth of the matter is, listen to what these guys are saying. But none of us are doing what we started out doing. Hardly any of us are doing what we went to school to do, right? So the idea that you're going to come out and have some sort of linear career ladder, that just doesn't really actually exist, I don't believe. But there's this moment where you can, understand that half of the jobs that you guys are going to go out and get right now might not even exist in 5 years. So if you're not a lifelong learner, intellectual curiosity and passion, they're telling you that for you, and that helps the company. So it's really like sort of, very synergistic here. And then just get in your mind about what kind of person would that company want to hire? What do you think we want? Do you want somebody to come to work for you that they, kind of quietly email their resume and then never reach out again? No follow-up, no energy, no passion, no thought, no nothing about. Ask yourself, how could I show that I would do well in that company as the best possible candidate? That's the way to think about it. That's what I think. I don't know. Yeah, but you go through the normal process. Yeah, like Adam said, there's certainly formalities to all of this. But I think you guys nailed it with the passion, resilient, smart. Just get out there and make it happen.
Any other ideas? Yeah, Nunzio.
I like to add that you really have to be disciplined. So in this new world that we work in, the company I work for, everyone is remote. So there is no big brother watching you. There is no office. So when we think about hiring people, we don't hire people to babysit them, or we don't want to be babysitting the people we hire, because they're working from home. So you need to be disciplined, really. And I don't mean it in a mean way, but you really have to kind of say, okay, this is what time I'm going to wake up. This is what I'm going to do. It's too easy working from home or working remote to all of a sudden just go off on a tangent and do something else. So I think one of the things that you guys really have to understand is you have to be disciplined, especially with the way the new world operates, where most of us are all working remote.
Anybody else? Great advice. Thank you, guys. Yeah. So I do want to say, and maybe you've answered it, but just indulge me a minute, because it was from the team here of the students. If you don't have a job opening, but I have a desire to work for Mattel or Hasbro or Build-A-Bear or Barnes & Noble or Crazy Errands or Future Today, if I have that desire and there's no job opening, what's my communication track with you? How much is too much? How often should I check in? Yes, if I see an opening, should I apply, but should I let you know I apply, even though you have no role or hiring power over that position? How much is too much to engage when there's nothing available yet? But I've chosen, not compromised, I've chosen you to be my employer.
Well, I think leading off what I just said, right? Hey, I heard your panel and it was really interesting. Now, I don't want 100 people, but this is
Be
this
honest,
is general advice, right? But I heard your panel, or I saw you in a magazine, or I saw your company won this award, and you were behind you were the person named as the person behind that product. Building those relationships. I can tell you, our product development director, Kevin McMenemy, he walked into our office cold, and he said, "I see what you guys are doing. I really like it, but you need someone with product development experience." And I was like, "Okay, let's go sit down in a room." And he started making sketches, and he said, "This is what you're doing right, and this is what you're doing wrong." And half the people in the company thought I was insane, but I was like, "I'm gonna hire this guy." There was no position. And it's been a fantastic relationship, and you can see where we've come as a company, working together, sort of what I brought, what he brought. No one is good at everything. Now, he came in with a lot of experience, and he wanted to work at crazy errands. But for you all, you can build that, and you just show that enthusiasm and that excitement, because you never know when you might connect with someone who's like, "Oh, actually, but my colleague in this other department is looking for someone." And they're just going to drop your name, and it's going to put your resume to the front of the list.
Gotcha.
And just jumping off of that, I would say, do your homework. Don't just reach out with a, "Hey, I'm looking for a job." Be specific. Like Erin said, "I've noticed this. This is what my background is. I think I can really assist." And then be prepared to maybe not get that job you're really looking for, but be okay with getting your foot in the door. Choose to get your foot in the door. And particularly at a company like a Barnes & Noble, for example, we have 600 stores. We had about 30 interns come from the stores into the corporate office. We ended up hiring about 80% of them. So it wasn't where they wanted to start in the store, but it's how they got there, because they were open to other jobs, and they did their homework, and they interviewed with every department, and were very smart about what they could offer into that department, and didn't just say, "Hey, I'm still here," but really be pragmatic and thoughtful about your communication.
Really nice advice. Yeah. Anybody else?
I'll say that right before I came here, I called my head of HR and I said, "Hey, I'm talking on this panel. Give me an example of one of our best hiring stories in the last year." And she told me this story of this young lady who, for 2 years, continued to connect with different people at Hasbro through LinkedIn, would find who their colleagues were, did some of the things that Erin mentioned, came to events like this. You're taking the first step right here, and hopefully this wasn't your first step. You've been doing this type of stuff before. And 2 years later, there was an opportunity, and she got a chance to interview, and she was the first choice for the hire. So and she had what a great story to tell in her interview. For anyone who she interviewed with that didn't know that story, she could talk about her path. She could talk about the fact that she was tenacious. She could talk about why she was so passionate about joining the company. It was great. And, a lot of us knew her beforehand, so that was pretty cool.
Excellent. What are we putting on the resume that's wrong or right? What, of the last 3 resumes you saw, what caught your eye? What in the resume caught your eye?
Short and sweet. I like short and sweet. We're looking at hundreds, right? Some of us have automated systems that are just filtering you out. Others, it's a human being looking at every resume. Keep it simple. If you have a portfolio, keep it short, keep it tight. You put your best stuff forward, and there's that feeling that you want to show everything, but if you try, no one's going to see it.
It's an interesting question on the marketing brand management side. I think we always look at a balance of sort of left brain, right brain, strategic, creative, but a way in. And the way in could be when you see a candidate, what's their way into what we do. And I think there's also an old adage, like when you have a strength, especially when you're trying to do something, emphasize your strength to get that first opportunity, and then fill in the other stuff along the way. But the strengths are what I think typically open up the first door. I think that's an important one as you're career searching, job searching, trying to find that first opportunity.
I would just suggest that you do have a professional or maybe a mentor or somebody else on your board of directors read it, sort of almost like blind, like don't say everything you were trying to say, like let them read it and then let them tell you what they think that said. And no typos, guys. Come on, man. So let's just clean that up. And the reason is it's not that everybody doesn't make a mistake, but there's a, this sense of pride there. It's who are you? Are you, because companies don't want people that if you're going to make the simple mistake, are you going to make, a mistake in the hard times, right? I'll add another thing too, where I've learned to create over time a good resume, is that particularly when I was in your shoes, if I didn't get a position, sometimes I would call the company back and just say, I want to know what I could have done better. Like, talk me through, like, what wasn't attractive to you on this. And really quick story, I had sent my resume to Mattel after I got my MBA, or was at the end of my MBA. And they didn't call me back, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm perfect for the Barbie business. I'm calling them back, and I did this, but I'm like, I want to know what I did wrong. So I called HR, and I'm like, hey, what? I just want to talk through this. And they're like, who are you again? They couldn't find my resume anywhere. What they had done, because I was Columbia grad, they put my resume in the finance pile, and they like, well, you've never done anything in finance. I'm like, that's because I don't want to be in finance. I want to be in product marketing. And they're like, oh, you're perfect for that. And I got an interview, guys. So and then ended up getting a job at Mattel and worked there for 5 years. So, sometimes even when you're, genuinely calling to say, I want to understand, you might find out they actually didn't mean to not call you back. So, and that follow-up is, apparently said something to them about who I was as a person. So,
That's excellent. That's a great
Kathleen,
story.
a real quick pivot answer to that.
Sure.
It's not just your resume. Make sure your LinkedIn is consistent with your resume if you're in the especially the business side. But I'm seeing more and more folks coming up through engineering and product design and who have great LinkedIn profiles. Also, clean up your social media. I Facebook stalk anyone I'm about to hire, and I've done this
It's great advice.
since there was MySpace. And I can't tell
What?
you how many times. What's that? I can't tell you how many candidates I've seen bonging beers on spring break and in all other things I won't say out loud. Like, you got to clean it up. You got to realize that those are public spaces. Yes, not everyone's going to be president, so you're not. But and everyone has a life outside of work. But when there's so many candidates for a few amount of roles, we're going to look and see what your public persona is. Especially important if you're going to be in the business side and business facing with corporate execs or customers or clients, but in other areas as well.
Right.
It's good to take a look at it.
Got it. Great advice. All right, get ready for questions because I'm going to come around. But before I do, I will say this. The toy industry is extremely a generous, compassionate, passionate industry to be in. And we just had to make one call, one reach out to get this quality panel on the stage. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for saying yes. I really, really think that this group here has learned a wealth of information from you this morning. So with that, I just wanted to get that out before the questions go crazy. Who's got the first question? Hand up, beautiful. I'm going behind you.
Hi, I was just wondering if someone had a game that maybe they wanted to get out there. Obviously, networking would be a good way to go, but do you guys have any, tips on, if you wanted to get a game out there and make it known and advertise how you guys would go about it?
I'll jump in on that. There are a lot of people who come up with games. Thousands and thousands and thousands. And thousands of new games are introduced every year in the industry. Now, I built a company. I did it my own path. I'm going to make that recommendation to you. If you believe in that game enough that you think the whole world should be playing it, then you just have to go to game conventions, board game conventions, sit there at a table, invite people, and in 10 years, the world may beat a path to your door, because there is so much competition for mind share in that industry.
Yeah, it's tough. I still get games pitched to me on LinkedIn all the time. You just need to pull all the levers. Yes, go to the events. Yes, for the companies that do online submissions for inventors, Hasbro just launched one in the last 6 months, so you can submit your game through there. Yes, play with your friends, have them talk about it on social media. If you have the wherewithal and you're willing to do it, do a Kickstarter. There's so many famous games on Target and Walmart shelves today that started as a $10,000 funded Kickstarter. I know we're talking Cards Against Humanity. I think Angry Kittens launched that way. A lot of very modern and popular games, and a lot of awesome strategy games as well. And some people decide, hey, I'm not even going to do traditional business. I'm only going to launch games on Kickstarter, and have been quite successful. It's really fun to see. It's a very entrepreneurial part of the industry, but as Aaron said, everyone has a great game idea. So it does take a little bit of tenacity to get it out there.
We have a question over here.
Good morning. My name is Merrick. I'm with my colleagues from the University of Maryland. I want to first thank you for allowing us to be here and tap into your endless pools of knowledge. So thank you for that. My question is for the whole panel. With AI hitting the scene lately in a really strong way and the controversy that surrounds it, what advice do you have for us who want to be able to incorporate that type of technology into a future product, either for a case competition or just in general, to be able to produce something and pitch that to an association?
Wow, good question.
I'll put my computer science hat back on. I mean, Crazy Aaron's is using AI every day now in our product development process. We make non-tech products, so we're not putting chips in our products, but it is helping all of our creative people be more creative. So whatever your area of specialization, I would encourage you to look and say, how can AI help me reduce mundane tasks and act like I have a personal assistant doing work for me so that then I can make smart choices to be my best self, to be my most creative self.
My head of graphic design came up to me when chat and the related apps started becoming more widely available. And she's, geez, this is going to take mine and my staff's job in 5 years. I said, well, not really. I bet you said that when Photoshop came out because you were a hand artist. You just found out how to do your job better. AI is not going to take over people's jobs. It's the people who understand how to use it as part of their skill set who will take your job, right? It's just another tool. You still need the human touch. You still need to cross that chasm. You need to understand what the consumers want. It's just another tool. It's an amazing tool, but it's still about you and what you put into it.
I agree with everything said. Very shortly, though, on the product side, you're actually going to see a really interesting introduction from Mattel on how we think about AI and product play. So there's going to be ways that...
Is this a spoiler alert?
Admittedly, I don't know if it's out there right now, but it's coming this year. It will come soon. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you're going to see some AI in how our brands engage and how our consumer base can engage and make a play experience, which I think is pretty neat, too.
Exciting. Well, we're looking for it. Question here.
Hello, my name is Marlies, and I've been a toy designer for over 10 years, and I just got my master's in design for kids and toys. And I've noticed something after COVID, that it's become much more automated with the resume selection. Before, it was easier to get an interview where we're going in person and introducing ourselves and showcasing our work, but now that it's more automated, is it better to put in your resume elements that are written in the descriptive part of the job description that are relevant to your experience, or is it better to just, indicate things that you're doing in general?
I want to just clarify. Are we talking about sort of keywords and how, if there are specific keywords that I understand recruiters, headhunters will look at in LinkedIn posts and resumes and otherwise. So I don't know if this is the answer to your question, but if there is a game that needs to be played, you have to find your way in to understand what those keywords are and present them as part of your story. And I think that's very important, right? So there's, here we are, a toy fair. There's a lot of, we talked about games a couple minutes ago. There is a game there. And if there is a screening tool that's looking for some specific skills and you have them and you have the ability to tell stories about them, I think you have to get it out there.
Got it.
I think that's part of, job search today.
I'm coming. Picked the wrong person for this job.
Sorry. In what ways has the toy industry changed over time, and how have you tried to pivot or adapt to those changes as rapid as they are?
I'm going to put a panelist on the spot. Can you talk about media? Because we talked about it just before.
Yeah, it's a big thing. We were talking about this before, and someone had asked me recently, for those marketers out there, someone recently asked me, what is the most difficult part about marketing today? And I said media. I always liked, my whole career, I wanted to be subject matter expert of all the things that I was responsible for. And I learned very early, it's impossible. It's about hiring great people. In the world of media and the way all of you consume media a heck of a lot differently than your parents did, or even some of your older siblings have. It's changing every 6 months. We buy, as a company, far less traditional TV advertising, like commercials on Nickelodeon, for example, and far more TikTok ads and Facebook Reel ads and YouTube and other things that are syndicated content that work with streaming type content. It's a completely different world. It's ever changing. That's why I make sure that I have a staff of experts who understand those changes all the time. So I think, and that's part of a broader, I think for me, a broader sea change. Just the consumer environment, that's what's exciting about this industry. The consumer environment is changing all the time. And just part of consumer insights, understanding those changes and what's motivating consumers today. This industry always used to advertise to parents, and then someone had this bright idea, hey, why don't we make an ad for kids? That was a big change. And we flip-flop back and forth in that sometimes.
Fun fact, $1.6 billion spent in the U.S. on kid advertising. $1.6 billion just directed to kids, doesn't include co-viewing or anything else. It's interesting. Go ahead. No, yeah.
I mean, I could speak to the media because that's what I do. So when I was working at Cartoon Network, it's been 6 years since I've worked there, and they've seen the ratings, and Kathleen, you know this, the ratings have gone down 80%. So where has that audience gone? Audience has gone to different platforms. So it's become more and more challenging for these guys to, okay, where are the places that we're going to find those eyeballs? So it's constantly being up to speed with what the new media is. I'm in connected TV, and I like to think that is the new media, along with YouTube. And we're living it today that we're seeing budgets move from the linear space to these platforms. So it's all about being on top of what kids are doing, what they're watching.
I'm just going to add a little something
Yep,
there on I think a little different angle on the question, which was how has the industry changed? I believe that the toy industry is a reflection of society overall. So if you go and we're reflecting back what consumers want, and a lot of times it's like on the cutting edge because it's kids. So back in the day, it's very physical, very learning, very simple, and it evolved as technology took over. The toy industry reflects that technology. When gaming takes over, the gaming industry gets included. When entertainment is what's kind of driving the narrative, then toys end up being driven by entertainment relationships, and licensing became a very big deal. Movies are now it's almost seamless. The toy, entertainment, gaming business is just one big pile of stuff, and it goes from the digital to the physical, so we will keep evolving as technology evolves, people evolves, and now you're seeing like sort of a comeback on things that are more physical, like the teddy bear business. I mean, who knew? But it's kind of It's almost like a kickback from the COVID days. You know, people want to buy the Barbie now, not just play the Barbie video game, even though they really wanted to go to that movie. Fabulous. But I think that we're a constant reflection.
I would actually add one thing to that. I think the games industry itself actually sort of had a whiplash effect about 5-7 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, tabletop games with all the digital gaming out there, I think the writing was on the wall, but the writing was wrong. And I'll never forget, I'm walking through Target, and there was an end cap of some of your games, and wine, and I think beer. And I was like, I don't get that. And then I got it, because it was marketing to a certain millennial consumer
Game night.
to buy that large, it was a big bottle of, I think, Barefoot. And to buy that wine and buy that game and have a night.
Yeah.
And that was a thing, and that has progressively turned into a thing, because as you have digital natives that actually enjoy understanding the people in front of them instead of just the people in their social feed and otherwise, games has had a resurgence. Look at what's happened with strategy games, party games as well. Some of the party games out there, unbelievable. So I think Target is reflecting that in a very smart way, and in winning that consumer. So everything you said is 100% correct.
Right, and just to add to that, really huge trend right now called kidulting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right now, the greatest growth driver from a consumer perspective are teens and adults in the toy industry. That's what's driving the business right now. You guys, you know, wanting to like experience a board game like it's something novel when it's been around for hundreds of years.
Right.
You know, look at that. They actually make these out of cards, or I say made of paper instead of something digital.
Who in a room has bought a Funko Pop?
We all have, yeah.
Yeah, those aren't made for kids.
Yeah.
40% of the sales of Build-A-Bear are now to teens and adults. 40%.
Okay, guys, I know everybody wants one more question, and I'm sorry because I think our time is up, yeah? So I'm thrilled that you all hopefully were engaged. Panelists, again, thank you, because I know we have about 6 more questions out there. So go ahead.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you to our panelists. That was a great session. I hope you guys find these companies on the show floor later.